Before we get started with this interview with Mark Packer, just wanted to let you guys know for the YouTube audience specifically, there's some weird technical difficulties this morning when trying to film. So we decided to opt to Zoom. And with some of the weird recording formats and everything that comes with it, this is sort of the best idea I could come up with, the recording software that I have and the editing software thereafter. So hope you guys still enjoy the product. Once again, this is a fantastic interview with Mark, and that shouldn't take away from it. I just wanted to preface it because it's going to look a little off, but I wanted to let our audience know consistently tunes in. That's why. But guys, thank you as always for your patience, and sorry about the inconvenience once again. Really hope you enjoyed this interview with Mark Packer. Let's get to the video. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Orange Crush podcast presented by Newton, Scott, and Associates. And today, we had a conversation before this episode started about when you're in front of greatness and you're just like, wow, like there's really something special to this. But today, I think that fits perfectly with our guest, not you, David. It is Mr. Mark Packer, legendary ACC commentator. Obviously, everyone knows the name. Mark, congratulations on your recent retirement, man. Welcome to the show. This is truly an honor.
I was going to say, I can't wait till the greatness shows up. I was going to turn around and see who's walking through the back door, or maybe David Hood's got something up his sleeve. But always good being on with you guys. And, of course, the work you do covering Clemson sports is the very best. So it's an honor to be a part of it.
Well, did you think maybe it was going to be the QCB? I'll throw that name out from the
Well,
past.
you can do that, but given his Gamecock allegiance, he has very little to offer. Whether we're talking about Clemson, South Carolina, or anything else, but he is a piece of work. He's one of the all-timers.
And that kind of leads me into this, Mark. Obviously you grew up around this with your dad, and then the Southern Fried Football Tour, WFNZ, the afternoon shows, ACC, ESPN. At what point did you kind of look over at the wife and go, you know what, I think I might be done?
About 3 years ago, if I'm being completely honest. When you do a daily show like I have for the last almost 30 years, the thing folks don't understand is they just see you, whether it be on the radio or television, they see the finished product. I mean, you basically work all day to get to the beginning,
Right.
if that makes any sense whatsoever. So the one thing I loved was the grind of prep. I love doing research. I love being creative. I love coming up with my own stuff. And then the show would start. And David and Grayson, I can't tell you 90% of the time what I thought would be cool or what I thought we were going to do, it went a completely different angle, especially radio, more so than TV so scripted. But with the radio thing, I would use maybe 10% of what I worked on all day and would just kind of throw it in the trash. But I wouldn't throw it in the trash because I keep crazy notes. I knew I could be able to regurgitate it at another show or another time. So, but as far as the grind part of it, I think it was a combination of a lot of things. I think that the landscape of where college athletics currently is totally different than what I grew up with and loved. The ACC completely changed, quite frankly. I mean, the addition of SMU and Cal and Stanford changed everything that I grew up with. And not that that's a bad thing for the league, because obviously everybody's making money, but it's different. ESPN was different as far as the script of the show versus being able to be creative for my sake. So even that changed. So for me, it's like the perfect time that when this deal was going to come up, I was ready to go. There's so many things I want to go do that I can't do it if I'm chained to this desk. And so, moving forward, I can't wait to travel and see the world. I've got a gazillion things I'm working on there. I can't wait to teach. I can't wait to write. I love to speak. There'll be some media things. So again, it's like a brand new chapter for me. I'm so excited to get going. I'm going to miss, obviously, there's some of the relationships that you develop year in, year out. But I'll see these folks down the road. So I'm not worried about that part. But I was ready about two and a half years ago that I knew I could see the finish line. And I was already starting to work on what I can't wait to do next, if that makes any sense.
When you made that announcement, there was such a visceral, like just overwhelming positive reaction just to celebrate the career that you had, Mark, just to kind of see that as you had started to wrap things up. I guess, what did that mean when everything kind of culminates together and there's just such an overwhelming audience support? Because you do a heck of a job, man. and it really reflected with the amount of people that just poured in stories after stories. It was really fascinating to read.
I was shocked. I mean, and for folks that know me, I drive a 2010 Ford F-150. I love my dogs. I love my wife. I love my kids. That's the most important thing for me. So the career thing, I mean, it kept me busy and kept me out of jail. But I love doing it. And, there's stories to tell. I love meeting people. I'm always a gregarious, kind of interested in everything, kind of absorbed. Let's see where it's going to go. Who knows what's going to happen? But I had no clue with the outpouring of support afterwards. And I mean, in fact, I got a phone call today from John Wildhack at Syracuse, and we were just talking about all the kind of crazy stuff that goes on in college athletics. I mean, the amount of people that called or sent a note or an email or text and all that stuff, I was completely blown away. But I almost felt like I'd gone to a funeral. It's kind of like, because I don't look at this as an end. I look at it as a now kind of a new beginning, a new chapter for me to go do stuff that I want to go do. So mentally, I wasn't prepared for that at all. I really wasn't. And so it's flattering. I'm humbled by it. I'm glad folks enjoyed it. I mean, I had a great time doing it. But again, like I said, I can't wait for the next chapter. I'm excited about.
So this is a question that I get asked a lot for people who see the snow on top of my head and they say, are you going to quit anytime soon? Are you looking to bow out? Are you going to go to college football games? Are you going to go to college events and just hang out?
Oh, yes. Are you kidding? I mean, like I said, when you're chained to this desk to the basement, for me for the last 6 years, but even before all that, doing a Sirius XM radio show here in the basement for 11 years and the FNZ stuff for 13 or 14. The Southern Fried Football Tour was a great creation. I still have my business. I still have that marketed and trademarked, the name, the title, the logo. I may even I might bring that thing back. I mean, who knows? There's no rules now. I get a chance to finally take the shackles off and go be creative again, which is what I love to do. So yeah, I can't wait to go down to Death Valley. I mean, in fact, given what the 25 Tigers potentially could be, it could be a magical year. So I look forward to spending actually a lot of time in Clemson. That's on my agenda.
That's actually a great segue into that opener, Mark. But before we get into the football of it, you mentioned sort of the shackles are off. What's sort of is there a tailgate strategy now? You're gonna be able to bounce back and forth to certain spots, maybe sit down a bit and just sort of be like, all right, it's game day, and this is my time off now.
Well, it's funny. The cool thing for me is to be able to rekindle with a lot of relationships and friendships that I couldn't really continue as much because you're so married to your job. And the amount of time, like I said, the prep work, people just didn't understand. It just never stops. I mean, when the show would end, you'd still watch games, you're taking notes. I'd have a notepad with me at all times, taking notes, coming up with ideas, saw a game, saw a play. Somebody said something stupid. Somebody said something that triggered something. So, I mean, my social skills got better on the air because you're taking phone calls, you're interacting with ADs, players, coaches, whatever the case may be. But my social life really got smacked, especially after the Southern Fried Football Tour. So that's one thing I can't wait to do, to rekindle with some relationships and friendships, go see people, go visit. I mean, I'm retired from this job, but I'm not retired like I'm not going to do anything. In fact, if anything, I'm probably going to be busier than I was before. But the cool thing is every day now feels like a Saturday, so it's like I get out of bed. It's like, okay, do I want to go road trip today? Let's go. Again, I cannot wait to hit the road and, tailgating. I made that part of my livelihood with Southern Fried Football. And I mean, the relationships, the sponsorships, the opportunities with all that kind of stuff. Again, I can't wait to the fall. I can't wait to go in and watch baseball games. I love baseball so much. And, my wife and I, one thing I told my wife 15 years ago is when I finally retire, she loves tennis. And I said, listen, when I retire, whenever that may be, of course, she'd laugh because she knew I never would, but I didn't have now. I said, one thing I want to do is take you to every major Grand Slam event. So she's getting ready to get all into Wimbledon. In fact, she was watching it this morning. So we're going to go down to Melbourne, Australia. We're going to do Bora Bora, New Zealand, and Australia in January and parts of February. So that's going to be the first the Grand Slam. She loves Paris. We'll go do the French Open. We've been to London, but we've never done Wimbledon. We've done New York City and the U.S. Open. So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff. I can't wait to travel the world. I can't wait to, again, absorb different cultures. I'm still taking Italian lessons from a speaking perspective. So, there's 1,000 things I want to go do. And I just can't wait to kind of just dive in head first and see where it goes.
Do you think you'll have the same so you're a big San Francisco Giants fan, right?
Yep.
You think when you walk into Roland Garros, you'll have the same feeling as walking into AT&T? Because I
Uh,
would.
well,
It would be
Oracle
close.
Park, it's now Oracle Park. They keep changing the name all the time. It's almost like trying to figure out.
Oracle, that's right. Yeah.
You're trying to like Texas State is now in the Pac-12. I mean, that's a bar bet. Nobody in their right mind would ever get that right. But the last time I was out there, in fact, we're going to San Francisco in the Bay Area next week, which is going to be my getaway. But I was out there for the World Series in 2014 when they beat Kansas City. And I will tell you, the World Series is unlike anything else, too. But my wife's the tennis nut. I'm more of just the sports idiot. And so, I think I'll enjoy it, but I'll enjoy the food, making fun of the French. Can't wait to, get into the Australian culture in Melbourne. I've never been down under from that perspective. So all of that's going to be fun for me. I'm a foodie. I don't know what kind of bourbon they've got in Australia, but I'm looking forward to checking that out. Apparently the wine is great in New Zealand. So again, I'll partake with the grapes and see, maybe that'll help me in my tailgate lessons when we get ready for a little Southern fried football.
It's a funny story David brought up to me the one time he went to, I think it was a Broncos game, and it not working, just kind of trying to enjoy it. But instinctually in your mind, things just start to race. You start to like, maybe you feel like you're grabbing for a notepad or something. Is that going to be maybe kind of a fun challenge for you where maybe you're just watching on NFL Sunday or college football Saturday and just like, oh, wait, that's actually a good idea. And you're like, wait a second.
You know what, Grayson? I constantly am making notes. I'm a great note taker. Matter of fact, in the 30 years of doing shows, I have notes from every show I've ever done. And eventually I'm going to turn it into a book because I got so many crazy stories with celebrities and politicians and musicians and stuff that's happened behind the scenes. I'm going to turn that into a book. So that's going to be my next project. So keeping notes is something I constantly do. I mean, if you'll see if you run into me somewhere, you might even just see me scribbling on a napkin or a piece of paper or something, stick it in my pocket, and I just continually keep all that kind of stuff. And I'm constantly trying to connect dots. That's kind of how I came up with Southern Fried Football. Just sitting on the desk, sitting in my chair one night, I had all these calls on my old radio show from all these transplants in the Midwest and the Northeast, and of course, you had all the ACC, SEC fans, and so I just started making a list of 3 columns and trying to connect words and stuff and ran across Southern Fried and football and drew an arrow to it. And I said, that's it. So, that crazy, stupid idea turned into not only content on the radio show, but I turned it into a business. I turned it into a website, trademarked the name, trademarked the logo. Again, I'm constantly tweaking with all that kind of stuff. So I don't think that'll ever go out of style. When I'm dead and buried, I'll probably have a notepad with me still somewhere nearby.
Well, let's transition really fast to Clemson football. It's a Orange Crush podcast. Clemson has an interesting opener.
Great.
LSU, Brian Kelly come to town. LSU 0-3 in openers under Brian Kelly. Dabo and Clemson couldn't break through that SEC wall last year. If they lose this opener, the SEC is going to say, hey, the ACC only deserves one playoff team. Who is this game more important to, Clemson or LSU?
Both, and that's why it's great. And I will say this: I also worked at LSU in the late '80s. When I was running the Clemson radio network and television network, Danny Ford was the coach then. I was running Clemson, Maryland, and LSU as a consultant in LSU. So that game really registers to me. I've spent a lot of time at Tiger Stadium and obviously in Death Valley. And for folks that know, there is a difference. And I just will emphasize that till I'm dead. But it's incredibly important to both, and maybe more pressure on Clemson just because of what you said regarding the league. And it's one of the things that is certainly emphasized on ACC Network. The conference and Clemson, we can throw everybody in on the same boat here, has done a great job from a scheduling perspective. But at some point in time, if you want to change a narrative, and this is really an ACC conversation, you got to start winning games. I mean, I'm not talking about running the score up on roast beef A&M. When there is a team with a pulse, you got to have W's. Clemson, quite frankly, has been the only team that's consistently been able to do that in recent memory. But as far as being a national championship contender, this is one of those games. If you're Clemson, can you get in the college football playoff with a loss? Yeah, you could. Certainly, you could still win the league, obviously. But from a narrative perspective, incredibly important for the Tigers. It's incredibly important for the ACC. You know, if Brian Kelly and LSU lose, I mean, it's still the SEC. They're still going to get a handful of teams in, regardless whether they're a part of it, and there'll be a different pressure on him. But this is a critically important game for Dabo and Clemson to hold serve in the Valley, no doubt.
Before we get back to this video, we'd like to thank the title sponsor for this podcast, Newton Scott and Associates. This team is headlined by Jeff Scott, former Clemson assistant coach and two-time national champion, as well as Eric Newton, a longtime local and trusted real estate partner. These two are teaming up to provide a first-class experience for all Clemson fans. Whether you're looking to buy, sell, or build in the upstate area of South Carolina, you can trust Newton Scott and Associates. Choose the same team that Clemson coaches are selecting when they're looking to buy, sell, or build, all the way from Tigertown to Lake Kiowee. For more information, you can find them at newtonscottsc.com or by calling the number 864-722-9062. That's 864-722-9062. Now, let's get back to the video.
It's like a consistent ACC SEC challenge that one conference seems to triumph in. And hours before that, we'll have the Alabama-Florida State matchup where a certain quarterback's been making some pretty heinous comments all offseason that could potentially backfire. But when you look at this game, Mark, and just sort of the summer that Clemson's had, the spring where everything feels like it's gone in the right direction, it feels like this is the game where, okay, we've talked about all this stuff. Now you got to the results have to show up on the field versus a potential, it potentially could be, these are just two playoff teams and Clemson loses by 3. And that sort of changes the conversation. But do you view that as this is just the game of progress, or sort of where I'm trying to go with that, I guess?
Well, again, the hype is nuts, right? And I always make fun of preseason polls because, quite frankly, we don't know anything. We don't know anything in the media. We think we do. And then by week 1, when we get together on that Monday before Bill Belichick makes his debut, we will already be talking about something, guaranteed to be talking about something different. Whether it be the Clemson game, whether it be Florida State, whether it be South Carolina, Virginia Tech. I mean, there's so many different scenarios. Syracuse, Tennessee. There's so many of those kind of games that will form the new narrative, at least for a week, until we get to week 2, and then we'll do a fake left, go right. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those kind of things that, as much as we will put all the eggs in the basket for Clemson and LSU, I could sit here and make the case here in July that when Clemson goes to Atlanta a couple of weeks later against Georgia Tech, who I think is going to be flying, I think Georgia Tech is the team that's flying underneath the radar in the league, because I think, number one, they're going to be really good. And number 2, Clemson in Atlanta has always been a fist fight and a struggle. That's an early kick. It's in Atlanta. And quite frankly, from an ACC championship perspective, beating LSU would be great. It beats your chest if you win from a national perspective. But that Georgia Tech game, quite frankly, almost means more in a sense when you start talking about positioning yourself for an ACC championship, the automatic bid, and the big picture. So if Clemson beats up on LSU and beats them by 35, guess what? More pressure now even in that Georgia Tech game. If you lose a close one at home, you're bummed out, you're disappointed. But quite frankly, that Georgia Tech game becomes even more important 2 weeks later. So every week, it's a big deal when you're supposed to be good. I expect the Tigers to be good. You'll feel that pressure. And I think Clemson fans, media, coaches, players, administrators, hey, you've been down that road before in that great run when Dabo got this thing cranked up during the college football playoff era. But I think the pieces are in place for this Clemson team to be really, really good. Really good.
We were talking about this Georgia Tech game the other day, kind of internally here at TigerNet, that, Brent Key, he's put his stamp on that program, and that stamp is we're going to go in and we're going to hit you in the mouth. We're going to play physical, mistake-free football. He's got Haynes King back at quarterback. It's going to be there. And Bobby Dodd, you're right. It's going to be a noon kick. And they kind of put the rest of the league on notice last year. I go back to that Georgia game. they could have beat Georgia last year. I mean,
Yeah.
they were right there on the precipice of knocking the Bulldogs off. And, that team cannot be overlooked. That is an early season. Clemson will have Troy kind of in between, those two games. And Troy, you can't overlook Troy at any particular point. That is an early season ACC matchup I cannot wait for.
Yeah, to me, David. That's one of those kind of games. I know ACC Media Days will start here in a couple of weeks, and there'll be all kinds of talk about week 1, week 2, and the non-conference games that are so important, and they are, and it's critical for the league to win. But to me, like Clemson, Georgia Tech is one of those games that for folks that really know what they're talking about, we can have that conversation in July. For folks that really don't follow the ACC and you know who I'm talking about, they'll run their mouths about stuff, and all of a sudden they'll be like, "Oh, Georgia Tech, yeah, whatever." I was in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago for an event at Georgia Tech, and Coach Key's done a great job. Like I said, he understands the fabric of what Georgia Tech's all about. He's into the whole physicality thing. They have bought in. They've done a great job in recruiting. And when you got a quarterback and you got a guy who can run and can throw and is tough and has experience and they have pieces around them, you can be dangerous. And so I think Georgia Tech, to me, we'll talk a lot about LSU, and rightfully so. But that Clemson Georgia Tech game in week 3 to me is a big time football game. I mean, Clemson's going to get tested early, long before they get to Chapel Hill and all the the hype regarding Bill Belichick and all that stuff. And I have no idea what that's going to look like. That Syracuse team and Fran Brown, the job he's done up there in Central New York is awesome. He's a great coach. They have bought in. They'll take it on the road with some attitude. So Clemson's going to get a lot of tests early in September. And for a team that traditionally has kind of started slow, I think most Clemson fans would go, hey, we normally get better as the year goes on. This Tiger team needs to be ready to rock and roll from game 1 because the schedule is legit up front.
Yeah, legit all over the place and all over the map for this group. And you have a Louisville game Friday night. You go to North Carolina, wherever the Belichick experiment may fall. You welcome Duke with Mensa, the Tulane transfer. And one of the things about this conference this year, Mark, is the quarterbacks that have entered, or in the case of Klubnik, have developed, and King, who have stayed for the last few years. Just how much improved is this conference? I was talking to somebody yesterday. It feels like there's a lot of teams that, yes, Clemson, it feels like they're in their tier of their own right now, just in terms of talent. But there are a lot of teams right below that could potentially challenge the Tigers, whether it's in Charlotte or just on their schedule. There's a lot of talented quarterbacks that they'll face this year.
Yeah, and the other team you didn't mention was SMU. And you know
Yeah.
what a great job Rhett Lashley has done. And Mr. Jennings is back, and they're going to have speed. They're going to have talent. And I'm curious to see how they respond in terms of year 2. But I think they're well coached. I think they've got dudes. They will be good. The good news for Clemson is they get SMU at home. But you mentioned that Louisville team. Listen, I don't need to tell you what happened last year with the Tigers. It looked like they were like me out there trying to tackle somebody. Jeff Brom is a big-time coach. He's a great offensive coach. They've done a tremendous job in the transfer portal. It's a short week. It's a Friday night. It's November. Where that schedule falls and all that stuff, you got to pay attention to it. So there are a lot of challenges on this schedule. But again, if you're good enough, right, if you're one of those teams, and then this is true whether we're talking college football or any other sport, when you're one of those dudes, I think you kind of you embrace that. It's like, this is great. This is why you sign up for it. You want to get tested right out of the gate. You want to get tested during the middle of the season. You don't want to have one of those cake rolls where also next thing you know, you go 6 weeks and you're playing, like I said, roast beef A&M. That Louisville trip on a Friday night is going to be a big deal. South Carolina should be really good. Again, assuming they can stay healthy. And that in-state rivalry is always incredibly intense. So I think the schedule is really good. The Tigers will have earned the right, if they win an ACC title and get into the college football playoff. But like I said, curious to see what this team's going to look like defensively. Got to be better than they were a year ago. I think offensively, they got a chance to be really, really good. And I think this season could be really, really good as well. I can't wait to watch.
I was talking to one of the assistant coaches kind of during the spring, and we were just kind of just chatting, and I said, yeah, if there's kind of a hole or a question mark that I have, maybe it's at punter, and this is an offensive assistant coach, and he said, yeah, the plan is we're just not going to punt.
That's it's like the old Mike Tyson line. It's a good plan until you get punched in the face, right? At some point in time, you're gonna be like, hey man, we got to pin these guys in deep. But listen, the one thing that nobody will talk about ACC football media days in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whenever it is, Nobody ever talks about special teams. Everybody's want to talk about the quarterbacks. And Grayson, you just brought up how many good quarterbacks there are in the league, and that's true. And people will talk about, defense and transfers and coaching staff change. Nobody ever wants to talk about special teams. And man, it doesn't take but one game in a tight game in the fourth quarter, and you realize, man, can you trust a field goal kicker, right, to make one from 43 yards? Or, hey, can we get this punt off and change field position? It's always one of those things that gets overlooked. But from a Clemson perspective, I have a funny feeling that Dabo is going to have that covered. I do. I think he's been relatively. There's some coaches you can get a sense when you're around them, and David Grayson, you're around them all the time. I think there's times that they know they're going to be pretty good, that they don't need to do a lot of barking. A lot of times they'll start, getting down and dirty on stuff. You're like, why are they spending so much time on that? I think Dabo this year understands this team with all the experience back, especially at the right positions. I think they are primed for a big year. I really do. If Clemson doesn't have a great year, I'll be very, very surprised.
You mentioned no one talks about special teams. Special teams won the ACC last year with the Nolan Hoosiers bomb from I'm trying to remember the exact yards, but it felt like 100 yards away. It was for at least for my
Randall kick return.
Yeah.
Set it up.
It was 5 minutes of special teams essentially. You had the Randall kick and Cade finds Antonio, and then the rest is history on that point. But Mark, you had mentioned something really fascinating about sort of you don't need to bark at these guys too much, because I feel like last year, especially on one of the first 2 days of fall camp, at least I think David, you were potentially right next to me, but it was a sequence with Nick Easton and Wes Goodwin just laying into these guys about attitude, intensity, and it was up downs, up downs, up downs. And this spring video that just has come out, it feels like that entire just pulse. And I think vibes are such a maybe cliche written thing to be like the vibes are different, but with a guy like Tom Allen, and so then we'll be talking about a guy that he's going to get that shot, Sweeney joke, that we're going to see what he's made of against LSU. But it feels like already the way that he's been able to sort of transform the buy-in and just sort of the attitude with this defense in particular. Just what have you seen? What have you heard from just what Clemson's new addition has brought to the fold with a team that you think should be very, very good?
Well, tackling is an essence, right? You have to be a good tackling football team if you're going to be a championship team. And you guys have watched a lot of Clemson football, so have I. And not to go backwards, but I'm going to go backwards before I go forward to answer the question. That might have been the worst Clemson tackling team I've seen in 15 years. I couldn't believe it. I mean, when you think about what Dabo and his guys were able to accomplish last year, winning the ACC championship and getting to a college football playoff with a team defensively that was probably as average for Clemson standards that I can even remember. I think Tom Allen, I've not met him, I've not spoken to him yet. I'm looking forward to that. I just think that what he's been able to do in his career and what he brings to the table, and what I've seen, and again, the practice clips and everything else, that edginess, right? The great defenses always have an edge to them. And all the great defenses are great tacklers. Not good. They're great tackling teams. We're going to find out in week 1 about Tom Allen and Clemson defense in the big picture. Because the team last year that showed up on game days defensively, that team has a real problem with LSU's offense. I'm just going to tell you. He can sling it. They got skill. You miss a tackle, somebody's going 80 yards the wrong direction. So you're going to find out, I think, in week 1 what Clemson defense is going to be about as far as the 25 season. So, again, you don't know it until you see it. I'm encouraged by what I've heard. I'm encouraged by what I see. But until we kick that bad boy off in late August when it's 135 degrees at night under the lights and 83,000 going bonkers, that's when we're going to get some answers. And I can't wait for it.
And I think that's probably a pretty good way. We appreciate your time to kind of close this out. But, Mark, for us old guys, and people say, why do you hang on? That's why you hang on, is to be able to be a part of an atmosphere or a game like that. Sure, ACC football kickoffs are great. Interview sessions are great. But being able to say, hey, I was on the sidelines when Hunter Renfrow caught that touchdown pass to beat Alabama, or I was in the confetti afterward. That's kind of why we do what we do. I am thrilled now that you get to do that on your own terms. I truly am. I think that that is a fantastic thing, and we can't wait to have you back in Clemson a lot more. Maybe we need to meet down at the SO one day and talk about which bourbon is your favorite. What
Uh,
bourbon is your favorite?
well, I mean that's a loaded question. Normally, it's the one whoever's buying one for me is my favorite. But the last show that we did actually right here in the basement. I'm doing this thing from the basement. And then ESPN's got like 2 or 3 more weeks to come and clean it out. But the last show, I brought out a little Woodford Reserve Double Oaked to celebrate and gave a cheers to everybody. And that's normally my go-to when I want to try to do something nice and all that kind of stuff. But I've never said no to the brown water. I never was even a big bourbon drinker to about the last 15 years. And I took a sip. I was like, boy, it really tastes good, especially on a cold night. So if it's cold, I'm normally going to partake, but the brown water has been good. I enjoy the old brown water. So a little Woodford Reserve is normally my go-to, one way or the other. But I can't wait to be down in Tigertown and expect to be down there a lot, quite frankly. So you never know what's going to be next on the agenda, but just stay tuned. We'll see where it goes.
You'll enjoy this David Hood story. I have a friend who was a fire captain at the House of Pain in Louisville, but also a Clemson guy. And so when Clemson played out Louisville, one of the Lamar Jackson games several years ago, it was a night game, and he said, "I want you to finally come out and tailgate with me. I'm going to introduce you to some Clemson people, but a whole lot of Louisville people too who will be excited to meet you." And I get there, and because that is a bourbon drinking town, right?
Great.
His wife came up to me and she said, "I'm going to introduce you to a Churchill Downs favorite, a bourbon slushy." And I said, "What in the heck is a bourbon slushy?" And she handed me this large cup full of ice and bourbon and something else. I think it was Angel's Envy bourbon,
Oh yeah,
which is, pretty good, right?
yeah, real good.
And because I'm not drinking straight bourbon and there's something else in it, I'm just slurping away, man. It is hot. And I am like, yeah, give me another one and give me another one and give me another one. And Nikki, my wife, she comes over to him and she goes, "We got to go back to the hotel now and get ready because you've got to go to work." And I went, "Okay."
Yeah, yeah. I was going to
She's
say
like,
those bourbon slushies. You drink enough of them, you can talk to those thoroughbreds. You actually think those horses are talking back to you. It's funny how that stuff works.
Oh goodness.
that's how it worked that day.
What did that gamer look like, David? Was it just a bunch of letters scrambled together? I need to see this rough draft of that.
Well, it was really cool because I walk into the press box and I'm still feeling it a little bit. And the first person that I run into was Papa John's Flattery, the guy that started Papa John's, right? And I was like, "Yo, dude, pizza, right?" And Nikki's like, "You need to just come on down the hallway." And then, the second person that I run into is Buddy Ryan. Remember Buddy Ryan?
Sure.
One of his kids was on staff who was talking to Muhammad Ali. And I got sober really fast because I took a picture. I'm like, "Holy cow, that's Buddy Ryan and Muhammad Ali in conversation." I really need to be a part of this. So I sobered up fast.
Well, you know what? Louisville to me is one of the most underrated road trips, not only within the ACC but around the country. It is a great party town. Their facilities are great. The people up there are awesome.
Press box food's great.
I've always found Louisville to be a neat town to go to a football game, baseball game, basketball in particular. They got it going on for hoops with Pat Kelsey and company, but they know how to have a good time. And you're in the bourbon capital of the world, man. Those folks have mastered the art of the old brown water. I've not had the old bourbon slushy, but I'm going to put that on my to-do list.
It's gonna be the first note after this podcast, isn't that right? Mark, we really appreciate your time today on this podcast. Do you have any final words or a message before we send this thing off?
Yeah, I plan on being down in Clemson a lot. So whether it be for a game or hopefully doing some speaking or some teaching or whatever the case may be. And if you see me, come up, just say hello. I mean, I'm a gregarious soul, so can't wait to get back down there a bunch. Like I said, it's kind of home away from home for me, given the fact that I'm a graduate, but both of my daughters were graduates of Clemson University. So it's a special place for me, always has been. And so if you see me on the campus or at a ball game or whatever, come up, say hello. Look forward to it.
Man, a class taught by yours truly, Mark Packer. Man, I graduated too early. graduate too early, man.
I just got done doing a sports marketing class for Wake Forest, and I love doing that. So that is on my agenda. Writing a book, traveling the world, teaching, speaking. That's 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E for me. So look forward to being down in the upstate. Can't wait to be down in the valley this fall. It's gonna be great.
To work with Dave Gorin up at Wake Forest? Did he get you hooked up on that?
No, this was when we were doing the ACC huddle when they took PM on the road. When I would do the show Fridays from wherever they put us, I tried to line up a teaching or speaking engagement that Friday morning on campus at all the schools. So whether it be a business class, a marketing class, sports communications, journalism, I love doing all that stuff. So I always try to put my hands in everybody's cookie jar from that perspective, just because I like giving back to the next generation of whatever journalism is going to look like, or business, or entrepreneurship, or marketing, or whatever. So the thing with Wake Forest, I've done multiple years, and I just got done doing it a couple of weeks ago, and they were doing a class here in Charlotte, so I didn't have to go up to Winston-Salem. So it worked out great. And again, I look forward to doing that down in Tigertown too. Looking forward to it. It should be fun.
We'll be looking forward to your next appearance potentially on this podcast, talking more Clemson and just a bunch of other stuff. Mark, always a pleasure. Guys, thank you for tuning into the Orange Crush podcast presented by Newton Scott and Associates. We had more on them earlier in this episode. An ad break you'll see. But guys, thank you so much. Take care. God bless. Have a good one.